Let's welcome our host for today, Richard Hoffman.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you very much. I love this album, and I feel like I have been a fly on the wall during its composition, during the collaboration between Richard and George. And I would like to put a question out there to both of you, Richard and George, and that is simply, how did this come about? How did a poet from the United States and a musician from Switzerland manage to find each other and decide to collaborate?
As a poet, I gravitate toward ballads, and I've always loved the ballads that Steve Winwood did of John Barleycorn, the poem by Robert Burns. And I've been listening to it 50 years now, can I believe it? And in 2020, I was listening to a version of it on his birthday, and I came upon George's version. And I said, wait a minute, I got out my poetry book, and I realized he's actually singing it word for word in the 18th century dialect that Robert Burns wrote it in, which is not what Steve Winwood did. Nothing against Steve Winwood. And I thought, who is this guy? And there was so many different layers in it. There was female vocals and harmonies, and every verse had a different, went back and forth between a cappella. And so finally I just wrote him and I said, hey, this is just fantastic. And I sent him some poems as a way of thanking him. And he wrote back fairly quickly, maybe within a day, and he thanked me and he said, do you mind if I try to make a song out of one of those poems you sent me? And I said, yeah, sure. And a few days later, literally very quickly, he sends me back a mix of one of the poems turned into a song. It was amazing. And he suggested, why don't we just collaborate during this dark period? Why don't we just get together and you send me poems and I will work on them, and I'll send you back the songs, and we'll just go back and forth and see where it goes. And that is how it started.
It felt fantastic from the very beginning, and it felt very easy and friendly, and we understood each other very well from the beginning. And I felt very flattered by the compliments Richard gave me about my John Barleycorn version, and I wasn't aware of that someone from America could react to my music. And yeah, I was surprised, and it was the best thing that could happen to me in this pandemic period. Just diving into this tunnel of work and communication with somebody I didn't know, but it felt right and it felt good, and yeah, and the rest is history somehow.
Well, I'm a great admirer of this collaboration. There seems to be a kind of, there's a purity to it. I mean, in what you both recounted about coming together and deciding to explore the possibility of a larger project. It's not like, well, I'll have my people call your people, or let's get my agent. There's just a kind of a purity, a burgeoning friendship between artists that are focused
absolutely on. Yeah, and
that's a wonderful and rare thing. And in the music itself, George, your career as a musician has bridged and blended a number of genres of music, from classical to folk to blues and rock and roll, and I can hear all of those things in this CD. And I wonder how you would describe songs of the Crossing. Like what traditions animate the compositions?
Well, it's probably, there's not much issues I know more than about music, but this is the most difficult part. Is to talk about music. It's almost impossible to name what goes on when you try to bring words into a song. And the words are have been from the beginning the most important influence to me. And I tried to make a completely empty table, and tried to start anew. When I compose music, it's a bit bizarre. I have to forget all I know, and I have to use all I know. This sounds a bit like it shouldn't. It is almost not possible. I have to open my channels. I don't mean that in a biblical way, but I have to be very open to what happens to me. Richard smiles. I know what he thinks. He thinks about the muses who are calling us, and of course it's about getting all we can possibly get from whatever the sources could be. And I don't know really how it happens. It's a kind of a mystery, but all I know is the words are very important, because they light the spark in me, and then I know where to go from. And it was the composing job is the easy job to me. I'm not English is not my mother tongue, so writing songs in English is pretty hard work. And the music to me is, as Richard and I always say, is a chocolate job. It's the easy one, the easy job. This is not the problem. When the words are cool, then it's not a really hard work.
I see. Well, there are songs that you've decided to treat as very clean and unadorned, that and just showcase the lyrics. And then there are tracks on the CD where there's more orchestration, there are more layers, more musicians have joined the mix. Can you talk about that decision when you look at the lyrics? How does, I mean, as you say, it's hard to talk about, but what do you think leads you in the direction of additional layers of music and atmosphere, or a cleaner, minimal sound?
Yeah, I think I have enough experience to trust myself that that my intuition takes the right decisions, and I don't think too much in a very intellectual way. And first are the words, and then I start to move into the song, and from then on, the song is king. It's not that much an intellectual process. It's more let it roll, let it happen, let it go. Just get in the flow of the words, and then things come together, and other instruments. And in between, I try to figure out if that's enough, and at the end of the day, I listen to the song, and then I know that was too much. I'd better have a beer and have a break and listen tomorrow with a clear head, and maybe I hear the things that I don't hear anymore. And so it goes from day to day. But Richard gave me almost total freedom, and this is what motivates me to make something really, really good. And yeah, I tried, and I hope it worked. And the reaction of the people are up till now very nice.
Well, I think about, in particular, say the song "Winter Lover," and how it clearly has this Celtic vibe or feeling to it, and I think the lyrics themselves suggest that.
Absolutely.
And I believe that's that is. Doesn't Regina play on that?
Yes, of course.
Is Regina in the room?
Is
right
Regina
now?
somewhere?
There she is.
Regina is here. Yeah.
Hi,
I am. Hi.
Hi there.
Do you want to come on board and talk about how you came to be part of the project and what it was like to play on that particular tune?
Sure, I'd love to. Richard's been my harp student for a long time, and he's a member of my harp orchestra. And when he first came to me with this information about this collaboration that he had with George, he was so excited about it. And it was such a joy to see Richard so excited, especially during the pandemic when it's really hard to find motivation to do anything, especially anything artistic. And he spoke of his blossoming friendship with George with such love and respect for George's work, but for how they melded together as kindred spirits, you know. And so I said, of course I'll help you in any way I can, because he had said George wants me to play on the album. So as the music came over and we were picking out various pieces that Richard would play on, it came down to Winter Lover, and Rich said, would you play on this? And so as I said, sure, I'm kind of honored to be part of this cross-Atlantic collaboration, and it sounds like a lot of fun. And so then I got on board to meet George, which was my absolute pleasure. And he sent the music over. And it's funny, George, I kind of have to agree with you. I couldn't, from a technical standpoint or a music theory standpoint, tell you exactly how I came about to make the accompaniments that Richard or I would play on the CD. But you listen to the music and you start to hear things. And I'm also a vocalist and I love to sing harmony. So I would just started to hear various bits and pieces in the music that George sent over that I thought, oh, that might go nice there, or that might go nice there. And of course, it was George's music. So I would send what I would come up with over to George to see if this was something he thought would fit. You know, and then we kind of worked back and forth to make it meld in with the feeling or the thought for that particular music. And particularly with Winter Lover, George had these nice little vamps that were going that I could copy on the harp and then weave other things in and out that I thought might add to the texture of the piece of music.
Yeah, both of you are suggesting it's more about your ear than it is your brain.
Yes, sure.
Right.
I mean, if I had gone to Berkeley and gotten a degree in music, it might have also been about my brain, but
it wouldn't necessarily be any more beautiful. But maybe we should listen to Winter Lover.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be great.
Right. Can we play that?
You welcomed me when season turned from autumn into winter. My heart was cold, your heart was warm. You kindled all my splinters. With oak and birch and fragrant pine, your kindness pierced my center. You broke the bread, you poured the wine. You offered me your shelter and I became your winter lover. You helped me with your wicked eyes and saw into my future. You cast the runes upon the floor and turned my path from danger. You laid me down upon your bed, stitched my wounds with crimson thread, tinted me with chestnut hair, and offered me your shelter, and I became your winter lover. I split the wood to keep us warm. I fed the fire and mended. You carded threads from skeins of yarn. Upon the loom you wended a tapestry that spun the tale, the dawn of my arrival, the one you came to nurture soon. Sought the shelter of your arms and became your winter lover. Weather warmed and spring returned. You swept the ashes from the hearth. Let me to the secret path. Bid me well upon my journey. Oh. You wrap me in the motley cloak, threaded with your chestnut hair. You hold me with your wicked eyes to keep me safe from danger. Your fire kindles in my heart for the season of your shelter. I heal beside your winter heart. You'll always be my lover. You'll always be my lover. You'll always be my lover. You'll always be my lover.
Whoa. Wonderful.
May,
Yeah.
may I say something about the collaboration with Regina? There's two things I want to say to this. In this particular song, she definitely makes a difference. We're deep in Tipperary or Connemara or somewhere. I mean, this is I've been there and I heard this sound in the bus. We lived in a bus for about 3 months and driving up and down the country and listened to Celtic stuff all day and half of the night. And this Regina is a champion. No doubt about that. I mean, it's I'm a rock and roller. This is another world. This is something else with a certain flair for Celtic music, but not in this deep fashion like Regina presents it. And the other thing I want to say about Regina and the collaboration with her is nobody in this project talked about money. I mean, we're all professionals in a way, but that was never the point. And we all talked about the project itself and the songs and the music, and that makes and that happened in while the pandemic was on, and it was somehow a dark period in my life, in everybody's life, perhaps, and that made it so lightful. It was about human beings doing something, making sense together. It's fantastic to me. It was one of the greatest and nicest experiences for a long time.
Thank you, George. That's really sweet of you to say. I think it benefited all of us. It was such a dark time, especially for musicians or creative people who lost their outlet for bringing their art out into the public. And I know I had to dig deep and find ways to not go down the rabbit hole, so that I could still stay focused on my music. And sometimes there would be days I would wake up and like, nope, not gonna do anything today. But that really did help when Richard brought this and your music came over. It was just like, I have something to focus on that is going to have an end project. And so it was always my pleasure to work on this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your kind words.
You know, earlier, George, I had talked about how some of the tracks are unadorned, and there is one track that, in fact, is spoken, the Birches poem to the tribes, and you created a background for it, or a context for it, a musical context, a kind of soundscape that it could that the spoken words of Richard's lyric could be featured in that context. And what went into the decision to do that? To not find a melody. Find a melody in the words, but to go in a different direction and create the musical context for the words.
The first intention was to let Richard, to invite him to take a greater part in the whole project, in the whole album. So I could manipulate him to sing one song. And that was not that easy, but we arrived, we got there. And the other idea I had was I wanted him to do what he does through most of his life. He recites poetry. And I thought maybe we could mix both of our talents. He's a master of words, presenting the words in his own language and speaking as he does in poetry slams or things like that. And I will find, again, switch off the brain and start to get into the mood of the words. And I asked him before I did that, which is your favorite poem of all of your work? And he very soon said, it's probably Birches' poem To the Tribes. And I thought, well, that's a challenge, but I'll try. I'll give it a try. And I think it was very inspiring. The words did very much inspire me. And I loved the words. And when the words hit me, then it's not that complicated to find the mood and to find the instruments you want to do it with. And yeah, Richard.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that but about being part of it in that way. But when George suggested it, I thought, well, that would be great. I mean, and so, he presented me the sound, the soundscape, and it was just simply perfect. I had it recorded on a CD of poetry, and so we could take it simply directly from there, and George could overlay it with the sounds of that went with the words. I actually wrote that poem from an experience in northern Quebec. I was skiing up by Mount Tremblant, and across the street from where we were staying, there was a forest of birch trees. And every morning I would just wander among these trees, and they would start talking to me. And I didn't know quite what they were saying. And when I got back to Cambridge, I started writing out what, as best I could hear it, and it took a while. And that pretty much became the Birches' poem To the Tribes. It was what they were saying to the tribes that had been decimated, and that there would be hope. Somehow they would return. And it was their lament to the tribes, not mine. I was just trying to hear what the Birches were saying. And George's soundscape just added that haunting quality that made it far greater than the poem itself. It really is now, it's a new thing. I can't hear me saying that song without hearing George's language of music behind it. And so it is now, it's become a new thing. And that's precious.
So could we all hear that? Could we hear
Yeah,
that track from Songs from the Crossing?
You have peeled me around and shaped me out for canoes, and I have loved you for it. For I have carried your warriors into battle, the mighty dawn treaders silent upon the waters. I have watched from the banks your proud fishers, the quick dart of their wrist spear the silverfish before it wrinkled out of sight. You have kindled me from fire and drunk deep of my incense. My rough bark turned soft as a butterfly's wing when you caressed me with your fingers. When you kissed me with your lips, my bark unraveled and became undone, like a maiden unbraiding her hair before she lay down with her lover. I have watched over your children as they danced around me, peeling my bark, and I would laugh and shake my limbs and shower my leaves upon them. I have burned in my bark the memory of your face, your proud look, your nose is beautiful as a hawk, and your tears twisting from chestnut eyes running down your cheeks like crooked rivers, so in love with the earth, until you were driven out, your hearts bursting. My dear tribes, you shall return and dwell with me under the shade of my branches.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Listen, I meant to say this earlier, but I don't know who is responsible for the photo montages that we're being treated to here, but they're gorgeous and they're very apt. And I think we all agree that it's almost another layer of collaboration.
Absolutely.
I have to confess to assembling those photos, but I was only the assembler. My web wizard, Scott Feldman, who designed my website, made them into a movie, a montage, rather than still images. And I just couldn't believe what he did. I literally just sent him these photographs and he created this movie.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And so a big shout out to Scott for doing that.
Well, while we're on the subject of visuals, the cover of this CD is remarkable. It's really striking. And I know that Mike Kimball is responsible for it, and I believe we have a short video from Mike, who couldn't be with us today. Is that right, Richard?
Yes, yeah, we recorded it about a week ago, as if it was a session that this would be the place where he would be brought in. But yeah, he did that, and so yeah, if we could show that, that would be great. It's in a different setting, but it's its own unique thing. There's some sound problems with it, but I think it's all part of what makes this real. So
All right.
Hey, Richard, congratulations. George in Switzerland, congratulations. This is a great day. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you live, but that's the way the cookie crumbles.
nice to see you, Mike. Regina's here too, so she's going to be talking about her harping and the parts that she's created for the CD.
And congratulations, Regina.
Well, Mike, we've been friends for over 12 years, maybe. And when we met, I found out that you lived a lot right near where the place where I love to go, around Cape Nettic, in the shore of Maine. And I go up there every summer and I write. And during the making of this CD, a lot of it was written from right by Nubble Lighthouse. And at some point during the process of the song making, I just had this idea that a cover with the coast of Maine, or with the dawn, with the dawning of the sun coming up over the waters, would make would be a nice cover. And George and I had discussed it because we didn't quite have a sense yet. And I thought, well, let me ask my friend Mike. He's to paint something that would work. And I remember one morning, I think it was somewhere in all of 2021 or 20. I was visiting him and I left at dawn, and I took a few pictures of that area near where you live, near the Double Lighthouse. And I think actually it was on Long Sands Beach with the view from there. And then I shared it with you, and I just sort of asked you, Mike, do you think you could do this? And I think you said, yeah, I'd love to, because you were painting a lot at the time. So why don't you tell me how that process was for you?
Well, I did love not only the idea, but the photos you sent were just lovely. I love dawn. I love the early morning. I'm not always there to see it, but and then you sent me pictures of the comet, and I started doing research. You know, what was the angle of the comets? You know, on that, in that time period, and you know, where would it have been in the horizon? And I just, you know, I painted and painted and painted. There are so many layers and so many changes in the painting, as always, you know, because I really never know how it's going to go. But always with you in mind. And you know, that's the other thing, Richard. I'm skipping around a little bit, but when I heard the CD for the first time, I thought, well, this is Richard's soul. This is like a self-portrait, a memoir, but more than that, it's, you know, it's the inner Richard. And I think George brought that out with his music, you know, but the story, the history of your lyrics, like I said, it's you. It's the you that I've never quite gotten to know, and it's just lovely.
Thank you, Mike.
So the painting was sort of heading in that direction. This is Richard. I'm painting Richard, and I remember I finished it on December 31st, because you were coming up to celebrate New Year's Eve.
Oh, right.
So I was able to give it to you. I'm going to say now too, I'm at a friend's in Rockland, Maine. I'm on Dodge Mountain in Rockland, Maine. It's part of the Camden Hills. The fog will be lifting, but it's just so gorgeous here. But the Wi-Fi isn't particularly strong. So if we're breaking up a little bit, that's the reason. Hello, George.
Yeah, I had written Neowise, the comet, when I was up in the cottage that year, because it literally was flying overhead for 3 days in early July. And I'm really into comets in the sky, and I'm right there by the lighthouse. So that meant a lot to me, to be able to write it there, and then to send it to George, who created such a beautiful music with it. And yeah, it all came together. It really did. Your painting, the dawn. How did you go about it every day? You just sort of add layers and painting?
Yeah. I keep painting water, and it's it's and in doing so, I keep learning more about water. I learn more about waves and the quality of waves coming into shore has a great deal of power in establishing a mood, a tone. You know, if they're evenly spaced, there's nothing better. It's like a mother's heartbeat, you know. And in this painting, I think I discovered the quiet, the peacefulness of this dawn, with the evenness of the waves coming in, and that gorgeous orange light in the low sky that reflects in the foreground on the sand that's just been uncovered by a retreating wave. The sand was orange. And
Wow.
so, and one day I discovered that when the paint was not quite dry, I could take my knife. I work only with knives. I don't use brushes, but I could take my littlest pointed knife and I could nick the sky, nick, and make these minuscule stars. So I just got carried away. And I thought, well, where would the Big Dipper be on a night like a morning like this? And okay, right there. And then there were two other brighter stars in that morning sky. I can't remember what they are, but I put them in there, and the stars became an obsession. Well, there are not enough stars. I'm going to make, but it was all done in the same space of maybe an hour, when the paint just allowed itself to be nicked like that.
Wow. I've heard that was the process that Andrew Wyeth used. He
Scratching.
would peel back. He would scratch back to get some whiteness into his
Well,
paintings.
I'm like reinventing the wheel, rediscovering the wheel whenever I start doing this, and a lot of it has to do with the consistency of the paint as it dries. You know, I'm having an education that I am really, really loving.
What you said about, capturing part of me, I had this image in my head of the whole scene, because I took a photograph of it, but the difference between a photograph and a painting is like night and day. And what you had transformed it into was almost a snapshot of part of who I am, or what I was trying to represent as a spirit of the album itself. And the word dawning comes up in a lot of songs. It just actually does. I had thought the title was going to be The Dawning, and George said, no, Richard, it can't be that obvious. We have to go, it has to be something other than dawning, because this is the dawning. And we had our own little wrestling match about how to come up with the title that we did. But what I wanted to do is show everybody the actual painting, because you did give it to me that New Year's Eve for a gift. And I didn't know that was going to happen. I honestly didn't. I did not expect that at all. And I want to show everybody the actual painting. And here it is.
If you go there's that bottom, the sand that I liked so much. Yeah. I've given away 4 paintings, I think, to my closest friends, and when I've done that, it really I really work hard on those paintings, because I've got not a lot, but I've got quite a few paintings that just they didn't come out the way I'd hoped, I didn't want this to be one of those paintings because I was going to give it away to you, and it was going to be part of this creation, this creation that I'm part of.
Yes, you indeed are. You and Richard were the first two that I ran by every rough cut of the song. As George would make it, I would send it off to you and Richard, and you would give me your feedback.
Oh, it just occurs to me,
which we greatly appreciated.
Oh, Richard, can I tell the Gypsy Rose story?
Yes, the Gypsy Sweetheart.
Sorry. There's another in the town of Algonquin, Maine, which is a seaside community. Richard and Elizabeth were visiting. We'd been up to Portland, Maine, to the three of us, to see the Maine fringe, a couple of small plays. One of them was mine, I think, in Portland. So we'd been up to see the play, and then driving home, we talked, well, where do you want to eat? And Elizabeth said, let's eat outside somewhere. And the only place at the time I could think of was a place I rarely went to. There was a deck upstairs at this place called Gypsy Rose. So I said, well, there's Gypsy Rose. I don't really know much about it. But we went up there and the deck was full. So we walked into the bar, which was a very small bar. There were only a couple of seats available. And as we walked in, I heard someone say, Richard. And Richard turned and said, what was his name?
Tony.
Tony. Richard said, Tony. And they embraced. And the bartender, whose name was Max, I said, what's going on? And Max said, is that Richard Cambridge? And I said, yeah. And well, turns out that Richard's poem, Gypsy Sweetheart, has been framed in their dining room for years. Richard never told me this. And that's probably a story, that Richard might want to get into at another time. But I thought, who is this man, Richard Cambridge, that he's been here and left his mark?
Yeah, that actually was the magical poem, or that started it. I had, that was one of the poems I sent to George as a way of thanking him for the recording of John Barleycorn. And he had then written back and said, do you mind if I try my hand at making this a song? And that's sort of what happened. That's how there's Tom.
Hello, Tom. Hi, Tom. Tom stays at our house sometimes in Maine, climbs our trees.
He's also in the cover, in the CD booklet with, but yeah, and that's sort of what started it off. George asked if he could make it into a song, and 3 days later I get this recording, and it's absolutely beautiful. And he says, George suggested, why don't we make an album? And I said, well, sure. So I began, going through my old poems and writing new ones, and that's sort of what really kicked it off. That magical restaurant, Gypsy Sweetheart, that I had written so many years ago.
It's just a wonderful part of life now that we're middle age, that we find these new things that captivate us and energize us, these adventures. And a lot of times we don't realize how inward looking they are, because that's not our intent.
Right, exactly.
Our intent is probably more like an outward expression, but anyway, yeah. It's starting to mist a little bit here on my laptop, so I might have to retreat and wish you
Okay.
all a wonderful celebration.
Okay, Michael. Thank you so much for being part of this. It is kind of mystical behind you. All right.
Okay, Richard, thanks again, and congratulations.
You blazed a path through the night sky when Earth knew its darkest year. We dwelled in innocent garden the last time you appeared. What have we wrought, did you wonder, to a precious paradise? We needed something to believe in. We needed you, Neowise. Tossed on tempested ocean, adrift in a sea of stars, searching for the lighthouse, rest my soul, calm my fears. A chance in a million years, from a spark of life we formed. I wonder what you are thinking when you passed by this time around, like the man who wasted his talent and the maidens who burnt out their lights. Parables of possible futures. Oh, when will we get it right? Tossed on tempested ocean, adrift in a sea of stars, searching for the lighthouse, rest my soul, calm my fears. Will we lift our eyes in hope and bear witness to your sign? A light on the path of our future, to fashion a peaceful design, to bless the home we were given and restore the green and the blue. Oh, Neowise, we recognize our face in the flash of you.
Here we are.
just a short a sentence to Michael. What did he say? Michael Middle Age Kimball. We had a discussion when we started to talk about the cover and the booklet and things. Who should do the graphic design artwork and so. And we talked about a few possibilities, and then Richard came up with pictures from Mike, and it's suddenly that was like magic, another magic, like with working with Regina. It felt good to keep it in the family, so somehow, and it felt right, and it would not have made sense to give it away to even if he or she was a great graphic designer, but it felt absolutely right to give it to Michael, because he knew what's going on between Richard and me and Regina and the whole thing. Yeah, so that was important for me to say this to Mike, because I mean, everybody who sees this picture and who looks at the booklet says, wow. Even the guys at the factory said, wow, great artwork. And I don't think they tell this to any client. Really.
I want to ask Richard a question, and it has to do with lyric poetry. The pure lyric either arises from a moment in the poet's life, or the poet has worked very hard to make it appear that it does. But no matter how immediate or considered, they're in response to a moment of joy or grief or melancholy. And I wondered if you could talk a bit about the circumstances, the emotional circumstances, the autobiographical and historical circumstances behind some of the more personal songs on the album.
When George presented the idea to create an album, of course, I immediately thought, what would lend itself lyrically, to send him. I have many poems, and I also assumed I would be writing new ones. But the one that I had in mind right away, there was two of them. One was the Weaver song, and the other one was the Winter Lover, which was actually called The Lover. And The Lover was a very brief poem that came out of a dark time when I was giving up cigarettes. And it was just pretty much a poem of abandonment. And it was true to itself, but I was never fully happy with, maybe happy is the wrong word, or satisfied. It just left me sad. Well, that was the truth of it. I was sad. I was giving up cigarettes. The cigarettes were my lover at the time. So, but I wanted to tell a different story. Working with George opened a door for me, and it opened a possibility to re-examine some of these lyrics, some of these poems, and see if there was some other story to tell. And I found that story in The Lover, in Winter Lover. I just went right through the poem and out the other side, and I found the story of which is the song, which was very satisfying for me. It was almost like a resolution to part of myself, a gift to myself, to thank myself for that. And that's how that came about. And the poem it's a brief poem, but it's nothing at all like what George assembled. And I knew right away, without doubt, I heard Celtic music in it. I don't know why, I just heard it. I was very emphatic with George about it. There was only one song on the whole album that sort of had that, and I knew it. I could hear it in my head. And when, and we also wrestled about that particular song, because when I rewrote it, I wrote it in 9-line stanzas, and George said, I can't make it 6 or 4 or 8, but 9 is not acceptable. So And we wrestled a little bit about it, and I had to rewrite some of it, and he asked me to write a refrain, but ultimately it worked out. And that's that's just sort of how that became itself in and of itself. The Weaver song was another one. It was a song in tribute to the goddess, and the goddess resurfacing in our time, and the fights that were going on now with the patriarchy and white supremacy. And I was able to turn that around and found this almost childlike lyricism in rewriting it. And George was very helpful in that. He would send things back to me with some edits saying, can you switch these lines from 8 syllables to 4 and 7 syllables? I can't sing this last line because it's a double syllabic word. Can you change it to a single syllable? So one word was garment, and I changed it to cloak. That would be just a simple little thing, but that is in essence, the shell or the seed of the difference from poem to lyric to song that we worked with.
There's a kind of bravery involved in all of this, it seems to me, especially in this beautiful collaboration, because, for both poets and musicians, composers, there's an immense solitude that you have to develop in yourself to
Absolutely.
to do this, and to a place that invites the creative spirit into it, and to invite another person into that space is a brave thing. It's not an easy thing to do. So I'm just in awe of this collaboration because of the real love of the art that's at the heart of it.
Well, we have the same idol. We have Prince Valiant as our childhood hero. So this is probably a part of the explanation.
It is.
I guess one thing I would like to do is turn this over for a moment to George, because I believe George has a surprise for us. Is that right, George?
But the surprise we have is, the thing is, we did 2 interviews lately, and one of the guys, Ethan Gabel, asked Richard and me, "Boys, what are your future plans?" And Richard said something like, "Well, you never know." And I said, "Yeah." Ethan asked, "Is there going to be a follow-up album?" And I said, "Well, why not? And perhaps." And we mumbled and humbled around, and I don't know what we said. Nothing really clear, nothing really intelligent. But then came my birthday. I think it was my 29th, something like. And Richard sent me a poem, a beautiful poem. My face turned red, and I knew it was about me. But anyway, and I thought, I asked him, just for as a joke, I asked him if I should make it a song, because that was a déjà vu to our beginning when I asked him for the first time, "Can I make this a song?" So I asked him once again, "Shall I make this a song?" And this could be the starting point, the kickoff for another journey together for a second album. It doesn't have to be that ecstatic, euphoric, tunnel kind of thing. It could be 2 songs in a year, perhaps, and then hopefully we'll live for another 5 or 6 years, or maybe 4 years in time. Maybe we get on faster. It could be very well, so no problem when we get on faster. But I would love to do this without pressure. So I thought I make it a song, and we recorded a clip with my old and very, very good friend Silvio Panosetti, who did the mastering of Songs from the Crossing. And if Tim is with us and ready, we could watch now the clip to Dreamer of Dreams.
Hey George, have you still enough water?
Yes, Silvio, thank you very much. I'm fine.
Okay.
Music and mountains, rivers and streams, path through the forest, dreamer of dreams. Boyhood heroes, valiant and kind, prince of the dreamscape, wondrous mind. Lover of shadows, friend of the light, moonshine and starshine, prince of the night, keeper of memory, bard of the truth, strings of harmony, playing for you. Dreamer of dreams, wondrous and true. Eyes are gleaming, deepest of hue. Hope for the lost ones, a compass so true. Prince of the dreamscape, singing for you. Lover of shadows, friend of the light, moonshine and starshine, prince of the night, keeper of memory, bard of the true, strings of harmony, playing for you. Lover of shadows, friend of the light, moonshine and starshine, prince of the night, keeper of memory, bard of the truth, strings of harmony, playing for you.
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun to do. Yeah.
And just wonderful, wonderful stuff.
Thank you so much.
I think I would like to open it to questions, and I think we can just unmute and ask. We don't have to use the chat or any of that. We can. Hi, Tom. Yeah. So, would anybody like to ask a question of our artists?
Thank you, George.
Thank
Well, I just want to say that the word that comes to mind is just alchemy. There's just an incredible alchemy between Richard and George, and they're both just so phenomenally talented. And the record is, has a Celtic charm, but then it also has the energy of the electric guitar and the drums and that rock and roll energy, which takes it to another place. And aside from that, the melodies that you've created are just so beautiful, George.
Thank you so much.
To Richard's incredible lyrics.
Yes.
I guess, and it's also profoundly mystical and romantic record.
Yes.
There are so many stories about love, on this record. And it was very brave of Richard, I think, to not expose so much of his love life in that sense. It's sublimated in a lot of ways, but I guess if I have a question for Richard, I guess it would be, what was the most challenging part of making this record for you?
Well, I'd be hard pressed to find it as a challenge. Initially, there was a little fear that I would not be able to come up, with lyrics to give this gentleman. I knew I could go to some old poems. I didn't know which ones to start. But I think the actual challenge was I did not realize the extent of going from the song, the poem, to the lyric, to the song. And when I had written my ones to George, and he would send them back and ask for these minor changes. They're very minor, or he'd write a bridge or an intro or an outro. I didn't quite understand, his metrical need in singing the verses. I just assumed they could be sung, but they can't. They have to, they do. Music has its own, lyric has its own structure. It's slightly different from poetry. You might say they're kindred, but they're not the same. And then there's going to song. We called it, we would go into our smithy shop, the song and poem shop, and we'd be hammering out these things. And so it was labor. It was definitely labor. And so that was a challenge. Labor is always a challenge. Going to work is a challenge, and a pleasurable one, but nevertheless, yeah.
Thank you.
I have time for one more question.
Prince Valiant. Can you guys give us a description of where that came from and which one of you embodies him, or is it both of you?
You wanted to, yeah, we, in this whole process, we not only were making music and songs and art, but we were discovering each other. And we discovered a lot of commonalities. And one was our boyhood hero of Prince Valiant. I read those illustrated books, and it was totally entranced by them. And then George sends me a picture of his bookshelf with Prince Valiant, the whole series. And so that's how it came. It was sort of our little secret together. And there was a lot of childlikeness and innocence in this project. Working together, I felt like I was working with a boyhood friend, a dear one. And we were finding these little magic tokens that walked along with us in this process. And Prince Valiant was one of them. And I wanted that to be in the song that I wrote for George for his birthday. And I wanted to get the word Valiant and Prince in there somewhere. So it was a little code, I suppose.
Well, I think this communication about childhood and the early days when we were young, and so helped us in this pandemic darkness to keep the inner child awake, and we tried to bring some kind of innocence, not naivety, but innocence into the music and into what we do, and to this is what Richard says before. It's a brave thing to work with someone else, to let him into your mindset. This is absolutely true. But on the other hand, it helps we are two against the rest of the world, or against the pandemic, or whatever. So we can help each other, to shield each other, to make another feel safe against what's going on around us, including the elections in America, things like that. We talked a lot about that. And I always said, if we wouldn't be together politically, this project would never have happened, really. So we are close also philosophically, and yeah, we think very close. So
this has been a pleasure and enlightening in many ways. I'm going to be thinking about this hour,
so do I.
Minutes
So
for
do I.
a while.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of things percolating as a result of this conversation. So thanks to both of you. Thank you, Regina. Thank you, Tim. Everyone at 830 Coffee House. I would like to hear that song "Flame" as our, as I said, as our recessional, as a way to go back to the world.
Okay, that was another surprise for Richard.
I did.
If you would have asked me what was the challenge was to make Richard happy. That was very clear from the very start. And Flame, he didn't know that when he got the CD, when the CD came to America, he didn't know that Flame was on it. That's Flame. The lyrics of Flame. There was 3 short poems he sent me. Every now and then he sent me some short poems, and I put them all together and thought, well, I think to me they fit very, very nice together, and I'll make it a song. And it's a very short song, and I love to make surprises like that, especially by someone like Richard.
I thought that he had written the song.
No.
I didn't.
It's all your words.
I know. I didn't remember. Some of it looked familiar to me, but some of it, I said, George, did you write?
No, I wouldn't do that. Not on this record.
Oh, yeah, that was a surprise. Thank you, George. I can't.
Thank you, Richard.
A single candle flame illuminates the table, and the gin and ginger brandy coned in the glass. The hearth is quiet, waiting for the spark of first frost. I malted from the spirit I sip. Time is clay I mold in my hands. Far in distance, close in spirit, there's a candle lit on the altar of my heart. In the warmth of the flame, I whisper your name, my brother in art.